Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. We're excited to have you joining us either synchronously live as we're doing this presentation or watching the recording after. So it's great to see those of you here that joined us live. So our purpose today is to give you an overview of fellowship education as well as our fellowship programs here at Creighton. Our applications are opening soon for the 2022-2023 fellowship year, and we thought this would be a great way to kick off our programs and answer questions that people might have. Okay, so I can get my PowerPoint to move here. There we go. So what is an OT fellowship? AOTA is accrediting fellowship programs beginning several years back, but the first accrediting programs that could apply for accreditation was 2015-16. But the purpose of fellowship programs is to cultivate, recognize post-professional training programs that advance the knowledge and skills of licensed occupational therapists in a focused area of practice. So it's really helping to train advanced level practitioners in specific areas of practice. So here at Creighton, our mission for fellowship education, we're committed to advancing the knowledge and skills of occupational therapy practitioners in a specialty area of practice. And we will train fellows to be prepared to become leaders in the profession through opportunities in advanced clinical practice, academia, as well as service experiences. So the fellowship programs here at Creighton aspire to serve the profession by developing occupational therapy practitioners who are skilled in evidence-based practice, occupation-centered, holistic, and ethical practice. All right, so our Creighton Fellowship programs, some of the logistics or benefits of our fellowship programs here at Creighton is it is a full-time paid employment opportunity. Our fellows all receive healthcare benefits, or they have access to healthcare benefits, including dental and vision, as well as paid time off. There is an option still to defer student loans for fellows if that's something that you would choose to do. Creighton also is a nonprofit institution, so there are some federal grants and things that allow for some loan forgiveness if you work for a nonprofit institution. Here in Omaha, Nebraska is where our Creighton Fellowships are located. So the cost of living here in Omaha is pretty low relative to the rest of the country. So that is also a perk of this area as well. At Creighton University, we also have a really supportive learning community and environment. We're here for education. We're here for education of our students, and we're extending that as well into education and commitment to training our fellows. The fellowship year has extensive mentorship in clinical practice as well as in academia and scholarship. And then another key piece our fellowship programs have that many others do not is specific curriculum for interprofessional clinical practice and collaboration. All right, so here's a little bit about our history of fellowship history here at Creighton. We've had approved fellowships since 2016. The pediatrics was the first approved fellowship program, followed a year later by our neurology and gerontology practices. We did have pediatric residencies. They used to be called for about 5 years before that accreditation process. So we've been doing this for quite a long time. Other things that we're really proud of is that our program, our gerontology program, was the first one developed in the nation. And we had one of the first pediatric programs starting way back in 2013. All right, so a few other just incentives and program specifics. Our fellowship programs run from August 1st of the year till July 31st the following year. So essentially it's an academic calendar year. It would start about the time the fall semester starts each year. Our fellows have financial support to attend the Nebraska Occupational Therapy Association conference, as well as the AOTA conference. We feel like that's a really important part of professional development, and we advocate for our fellows to present there and also attend and network. Our fellows also get receive the fieldwork credentialing course. So we either bring that here to Omaha for the fellows to participate in, or this year we were able to have the fellows attend the course virtually, or we would provide financial support to go to a course for fieldwork education. And also our Creighton faculty and the clinical faculty are mentors in the fellowship programs on the clinical practice side, as well as the academic side. And our PT faculty help to mentor the interprofessional practice opportunities as well. All right, so we have 3 fellowship programs here, like I mentioned: pediatrics, neurology, and gerontology. And within each program, there are 5 core elements. So I'll go over the 5 elements just briefly, and then each coordinator of the programs will talk about those specifically in their program after. So the first element is clinical practice. 3 to 4 days of a fellow's schedule is dedicated toward mentored clinical practice in a practice setting related to their specific practice area. The next element is academia. All of our fellows learn how to teach lecture and learn how to develop and teach lab content. And they get kind of a taste of teaching in the classroom, mentored by Creighton faculty, and kind of stepping your foot into that teaching world if that's something that's interesting to you. And our fellows also support classes as the lab assistants for the classes related to their specialty area of practice. Within that too, they get opportunities to grade student work, mentor students in the clinic, but also on their assignments and practicums and those types of things. The next element that we want to bring up is interprofessional education and collaborative practice. So our fellowship programs work collaboratively with the physical therapy residency programs, which have been around for a long time here as well at Creighton. And we have core curriculum time with the PT residents and OT fellows every week on different topics that then the fellows apply to their practice areas. Topics such as clinical reasoning or education, teaching and learning, stress, burnout, mindfulness, all of those types of things. So it's a nice environment where you can have peer-to-peer just support and interaction and a community of learning that you can apply to clinical practice as well. Service is another element of our fellowship programs, as is an element of all of our faculty roles here at Creighton as well. So each program has specific areas of service that they participate in, either locally here or internationally, and each coordinator will describe that for specific programs here in a little bit. The other piece of our program, the element, is scholarship. So each fellow has the opportunity to engage in a scholarly project during their fellowship year. And that, as all the other areas of the fellowships, are mentored by our faculty that are experts in research. And they can also pair up with clinicians that they're working with or other faculty in specific scholarship or practice areas. And this scholarship piece is presented by each fellow at the end of their fellowship year in what we call a platform presentation. So a few of the other benefits of fellowship education is structured mentorship. So the fellowships are really designed for early years in clinical practice, either your first year of practice or within your first couple of years of practice. And that mentorship that we all hope for as we're graduating from OT school is structured and it's built in. There is a core curriculum, like I mentioned, that we engage in with physical therapy residents, but also each program has a core curriculum based on their specific practice area. Professional development opportunities include going to the Nebraska and National Association conferences, as well as networking with other faculty here, kind of digging into what your interests are in OT in that practice area, whether it's leadership or academia or clinical practice. There also is an opportunity for fellows who graduate from an accredited fellowship program to have an accelerated path to board certification for AOTA. So AOTA has board certifications currently in gerontology, pediatrics, and physical rehabilitation. So they are exam-based certifications, and they're related to a certain number of years that you've practiced in that specialty area, a certain number of hours of direct intervention. And for fellows, the pathway there is a little bit shorter. I believe it's 2 years. Whereas for somebody that's not graduated from a fellowship program, it's 3 or 4. Now those requirements are changing just a little bit because they're shifting from a portfolio application to an exam base. So some of those parameters they're still finalizing. The other benefit here is peer learning. So you get to learn with other OT practitioners and faculty, but as well as interprofessional peer learning with our PT residents and faculty. Here is a sample schedule of what a week might look like. So this is actually a sample of the neurology fellowship schedule. You can see the blue shading in the columns is clinical practice. So in this schedule, 3.5 days of the fellow's time is spent in clinical practice. The green time relates to university time, study, or planning. So on Tuesday afternoons, it's time for scholarship and service or the specialty curriculum. And then Tuesday later afternoon, 3:30 to 5 is when the residents from physical therapy and the fellows from OT get together and study and learn specific topics together. And then you can see Thursday afternoon is also university time related to scholarship, teaching, etc. And Thursday morning is time that the fellow would spend in class. So it gives you just a little bit of a snapshot of approximately what that schedule or week might look like. All right, so now I wanted to invite the coordinators of each program to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what those core elements are for their program. So if Andrea, if you would like to go first for gerontology, that would be great.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Andrea Tennis, and I will talk just a little bit about the gerontology fellowship, that we are very proud of all of our fellowship programs. And I also wanted to say at this point, if you feel a little bit overwhelmed by all of the things that you'll do, remember it is a whole year with lots of mentorship, and it is your first job. And so to have the opportunity to have your first job with guaranteed continuing education funds and tons of mentorship and the potential for loan deferment, if that is of interest to you. I just want to plug those 3 benefits when some people say, why would I want to do a fellowship instead of just getting out there and doing my first job? This is a first job. So I'll talk a little bit more specifically now about the gerontology aspect. The clinical site and partner that we have is Hillcrest, and the gerontology fellows actually have an opportunity to split their year 6 months in the subacute side of things and then 6 months in home health. So you would have mentorship in both of those areas and have a lot of exposure to working with older adults and different mentors in each of those areas as well. So that provides a wide range of opportunities to be able to explore your intervention toolkit and really be able to have creative and occupation-based treatment sessions with the clients that are there. The academic side of things, because I am the coordinator, you are going to be working in academia on the courses that I instruct in. And so in the fall semester, it will be focused on older adults. And then in the spring semester on the mental OT and mental health. With that, the fellows have a lot of behind the scenes access to what goes into planning lectures and labs and syllabi and activities and how to grade those things, how to come up with your own teaching philosophy and all of kind of the logistics and mechanics that have to happen in order for class to run well. So there is a definite exposure to that at a level that you probably wouldn't even see, even if you focused your capstone in the area of academia. With the service component, in the past, we have had an open invitation for our fellows to be able to kind of choose a site in the community on who to work with. And that has worked out okay. But this particular year, we have moved forward with a partner organization in the community called Project Houseworks. And we have been able to go in with them, teach them about what occupational therapy does with people and keeping our older adults remaining in their homes as long as possible. And then just this month of October, we have been able to go out and work with homeowners that are older adults wanting to stay in their home and come alongside Project Houseworks to provide recommendations and assessment on what sorts of things they would need as far as modifications in their home, devices, education, all of those kinds of things that we provide pro bono and that the Project Houseworks pays for and provides. So that's been very rewarding as a new relationship, and we plan on continuing that. So there will be several opportunities to meet homeowners in their home and look at home modifications and keeping people aging in place. And the other service opportunity that exists is with CARFIT, where you will be trained as a CARFIT technician and then also as a CARFIT event coordinator, which you will be able to take on with you wherever you're at after the fellowship year. And right now, CARFIT is on hold due to the world we're living in right now, but they do hope to open that back up this coming spring semester. So there's a lot of opportunities to be in the community as well as in clinical practice settings that are more inpatient focused. So my contact information is right there. If you wanted to email me, feel free to ask any questions that you might have. And we're going to turn it over to Dr. Feldman now.
Thank you. Hello to everybody watching live and recorded. I'm Dr. Sarah Feldman. I'm the coordinator of the Neurology Fellowship. I did not create the initial fellowship. That was Dr. Lou Jensen, but I took over in 2019. So I've been doing it for a little while now. Our clinical site is different than gerontology and pediatrics. We partner with CHI Health here in Omaha. And one of the cool things about the Neurology Fellowship is you actually get to explore 3 different clinical practice areas over the fellowship year. So the first 6 weeks are spent in acute care and also in the neuro ICU at CUMC Bergen Mercy. Then after that, you transition to a manual hospital for the rest of the year. You spend the first 23 weeks over there in inpatient rehab. And then you spend the last 23 weeks of the fellowship in outpatient rehab. So that's one of the great benefits of the Neurology Fellowship. And you get structured mentor time in all of those different settings and have your own caseload as well. For academia, similar to the Gerontology Fellowship, currently the fellow assists with courses that I teach. One exception to that would be in the fall. We sort of ease the neuro fellow into the teaching part in the fall semester. So you're not a full lab assistant, but you do help with a few different labs for OTD 316, that professional practice and ethical formation seminar. So you help with things like when the students first learn how to perform functional transfers and learn about some different adaptive equipment to assistive technology. And then you also help a little bit with some behind the scenes grading of their first practicum. There's also opportunities to do guest lectures if that's something the fellow is interested in. That could be done in neuroanatomy or in that OTD 316 course. Then in the spring, the neuro fellow serves as the lab assistant for Phys Rehab 1, the evaluation course. So you would be present in every lab on campus, and then you would also be responsible for teaching a lecture and lab module that you would get mentorship on. And then in the summer, the neuro fellow is the lab assistant for Phys Rehab 2, which is neuro rehab. That's that 6-week condensed course that we have. So you would spend 2 full days a week as the lab assistant for that course. And again, helping with a lot of grading for that as well, with lots of mentorship thrown in. And then the service piece for the Neurology Fellowship is fairly structured. It is a program that was developed a few years ago called For and With Others. It's a partnership between OT and PT here at Creighton. So you as the fellow would be responsible for sort of like supervising the program as a whole. What it is every semester, fall and spring, we have a few OT students and a few PT students that take part in this program. And they go to a manual rehab center and the inpatient rehab side on Sundays. And they work with some of the patients that have been identified by the neuro fellow as being appropriate. And they're not providing skilled therapy services, but they're just doing some sort of like fun things to get them up and moving a little bit out of their room to sort of break up the long weekends that can happen in rehab. So the neuro fellow really takes on the role of just helping coordinate that and being the touch point if students have any questions. And you would also help with orienting them to the program and then running a debriefing session at the end of each semester. And the neuro fellow does that, but also the PT neurologic resident. So that's the service opportunity that we currently have fellows participate in, but there's always other opportunities as well if you're interested. And then I think the only other thing I was going to mention is for some of the specialty curriculum topics that you would do. We have modules on spasticity, vision rehabilitation, driving and community mobility. So those are just some of the topics that you would do some readings and look at some presentations and further your knowledge on to become more of an expert in neurology practice. My contact information is listed there for you as well. So if you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to me. And then last, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Marissa Welch, who will talk about the Pediatric Fellowship.
I'm going to go ahead and start talking, even though the brain is spinning. All right, so Pediatric Fellowship. So I am, as Dr. Feldman said, I'm Dr. Marissa Welch. How I got kind of connected into the Pediatric Fellowship is I actually was a pediatric resident approximately 8 years ago. So I've actually went through this program. It has changed throughout the time in being involved in it from a mentor as well as a coordinator. To, I think, just expand on where pediatrics is going, as well as continuing to educate you and educate our fellows on what is like best practices and the different areas that we can treat in pediatrics. So within our pediatric fellowship, what is a little bit different about the clinical site for pediatrics compared to gerontology and the neurology fellowship is that you will be in the pediatric sites, all the different practice areas throughout the whole time as you're a part of the pediatric fellow. So these practice settings include outpatient, and this takes place at Creighton Pediatric Therapy, which is a faculty driven clinic that is connected to Creighton University. In the outpatient setting, you will participate in 2 different types of practice areas, and these include just general outpatient pediatrics, as well as more of a specialty focused in feeding, eating, and swallowing. Also, another practice area is the school-based practice. And this, we have a partnership with the Boys Town School District here in Omaha, Nebraska, which is a behavioral-based school. So you get to provide not only individualized services to the children there that are on IEPs, but also along with the pediatric resident, get to provide group-based, what we call sensory motor group experiences for the children there at the behavioral-based school. One additional clinical experience that you'll get as part of the Pediatric Fellowship is a short stint in the CHI's Bergen Mercy NICU. So you'll get 10 weeks of half days in the NICU. So you just get that exposure to what does practice look like in the NICU. To again, just give you experience and exposure to pediatrics kind of across this age groups. When it comes to the academia portion of pediatrics, this involves being the TA for both of the pediatric courses that our entry-level students take part in. Dr. Greiner and myself are the IORs for this course, so you would be working with the 2 of us in order to support this course. As Dr. Tennis and Dr. Feldman hit on, as part of the academic experience, you will get opportunities to provide lectures in both of the semesters, prepare and implement labs for both of the semesters, as well as participate in providing of feedback to the students in not only their written work that they hand in, but also in your interactions with the students within lecture and lab. For the service piece of the Pediatric Fellowship, our biggest service piece is the ILAC experience. So as part of the Pediatric Fellowship, the fellow gets to go and mentor students on a 3-week service learning experience in the Dominican Republic. And this just includes, providing service at clinical sites in the Dominican Republic, as well as, experiencing different cultural experiences while you're there, to kind of understand what does disability look like in that country, as well as what do services look like in that country as well. I think that, one other piece, and I think all the fellowships include this, but just to touch on it as well, is part of that, Dr. Greiner hit on this, is that you get CI training. So as part of all the fellowships, you have an opportunity to mentor students. And so within the Pediatric Fellowship, that occurs through mentoring the students that are when you're in the ILAC experience, so when they're at their clinical sites. But additionally, and I think this is across the fellowships, is that you also will get the opportunity to mentor a 1-week entry-level doctorate student. So again, just getting that experience of how do you, teach other students in the area of occupational therapy and in the specialty area that you're working in. So I will pass it back to Dr. Greiner, but my contact information is included here if you have additional questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the next piece that we want to kind of talk through with you and answer questions if you have them relates to the application process. So, this is a first job, like Andrea mentioned, and that structured mentorship is built into that. And there are certain characteristics of practitioners that make really good fellows. So we want to help you think about how you might be able to stand out as a fellow applicant. So I was going to open it again back up to the coordinators to see if you have any tips or advice for potential candidates on how to stand out in their fellowship application.
I can go if you want. So for me, the biggest thing that I'm interested in knowing is why neurology and why a fellowship. So if you can explain why you're interested in both of those areas and why you want to spend the year doing a fellowship specifically in neurology, that's the most important piece just to me specifically. I also always want to know and ask applicants about just their general organizational skills, because as you can tell, there's a lot of pieces to all of the fellowships. So just having a plan to stay on top of everything, stay organized, and keep track of all those moving parts is really important. So I usually ask about that as well.
I think just to add in addition, what sorts of experiences you've had with the type of fellowship that, so if it's pediatrics, gero, or neuro, what have your clinical experiences been? What have volunteer or job related experiences been? Because sometimes your fieldwork intentions don't exactly match up with what was available for you to choose from. And so in this time now, what I would say is, if that is the case, to think about how can you get more experience and more exposure through volunteering or additional opportunities to shadow or talk with people that are working in these different areas too, just to really know a little bit more about what you're signing up for, in a lack of a better term. You don't have to come in knowing exactly what you're doing, but I think when you have some level of exposure in each of these different areas, whether it's a level 1, a couple level 1s, or level 2 or capstone, it really does help set you apart in how you're answering questions on the interview day, I think. just being a little bit more prepared with what these types of settings might expect from an employee. And also one of the things that I think is really, really helpful is if the person is self-directed, they're okay with ambiguity because things do flux and change a little bit. And so being able to pivot if that needs to happen. And also just that organizational piece, because you are split across the week, every week in multiple different places. So just knowing where you're supposed to be driving that day and thinking ahead for what that all means, it really does require some of those good organization skills. And then the other thing is just effective communication, really being able to articulate what your thoughts are, your goals are, as well as what your needs are, because you do have an opportunity to be mentored every single week by your academic and your clinical mentor. And we can do the best that we can, but we also need to know what you need. And so being aware of those kinds of things and articulate in that really helps you to be able to stand out even on the interview day with being organized with your thoughts.
I think Dr. Tennis and Dr. Feldman hit on a lot of the areas, but I think the only other piece that I would add in is just that open-mindedness. And I think this comes in handy in the sense that, as we all talked about, is you're in different practice settings, you're in different specialty areas, even within those practice settings. And so you're going to have mentorship by different people in all of those. It may be one or more in the same practice area, it may just be one, but really being open to just learning as much as you absolutely possibly can within a year, which I know is hard at times, especially when there is so much to learn. But if you can really take that aspect and thinking about it, I think those fellows tend to gain the most out of their experiences and are able to then, formulate into their own practitioner, but taking all the different little snippets from all the different mentors that they have throughout their time.
Wonderful, thank you. So I think one thing that we do really well and we strive to do is to understand where each fellow is coming in and their experiences on day one, and helping them kind of establish their own goals and learning objectives of what they want to learn throughout the year. Some students come in really strong in the area of public speaking and teaching, others come in really strong in the area of like service. So we individualize that for fellows as well. All right, so finally, we wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up about the application process and offer our support if you're considering applying to any of our programs. We do have an interest survey, and we would ask that people fill that out, and I have a link to that here in just a minute, but it doesn't commit you to applying to a fellowship program. It just lets us know that you're thinking about it, and if you might want one of the coordinators to reach out to you to help you through that application process. But the full application process is completing an online application. There are a few essay questions that you would respond to relating to your professional goals. There is a place where you will upload a resume or a curriculum vitae or CV, as well as an academic transcript from your university. So those things can be emailed to me. That my email information is in the application, but there's also a place that you can link the PDF right online. And then the third thing that you need to have, or the fourth thing, excuse me, is a list of professional references. So we aren't requiring a letter of reference. However, it's always good to ask your references permission before you send their information. But you'll want one reference to be an OT faculty, somebody that taught you. And if you are a Creighton graduate, I would suggest finding an OT faculty that is not one of the members of the program leadership team that you're applying for. Another reference you'll want is some sort of fieldwork educator or somebody that has seen you in clinical practice. And then that third professional reference can be anyone that you choose who might offer another perspective of you as a person or you as a clinician. So our applications are opening this coming Friday, October 29th, and they will remain open until after the first of the year, January 14th. We will have on-site interviews for our fellowships this year, and that happens at the end of February. So as promised, here are some QR codes and links to our applications. That first QR code is the fellowship interest survey. Again, that doesn't commit you to submitting an application. It just lets us know that you're interested in ways that we can connect with you if you want more information. All right, and we wanted to offer a little bit of time. If those of you here watching live have any questions, we'd be happy to hear from you. No questions? That's okay. That's okay. There's lots of time to ask questions and get our answers. So here are our contact information. Each coordinator for the program and then myself as fellowship director are here for you if you have any sorts of questions. And that is it. That's all we have for you today. So thank you all for attending, and we hope to see your application coming through our email inboxes. Take care. Have a great afternoon.